Dudes and dudettes of YouTube land, it's Frank with What's the Point EDC. I want to wish everybody a happy National Knife Day. Before I hit the knife shop, Edgeworks Knife and Supply, by the way, bada bang, you see the sticker right there. Before I hit them up, I want to give you guys a quick little video. Since it is National Knife Day, let's just talk about steels. You know, like D2. We're going to talk about D2 steel. Right here we have the Kubey Tityus, the KU322. It's D2 steel, G10 scales. It's a liner lock with a deep carry pocket clip, and it has a coating on the blade. I'm not exactly sure if this is PVD or what it is, but it is D2 steel. Let's talk about another one real quick. Right here we have the Petrified Fish PF969. It's G10 scales, K110 steel with a titanium milled pocket clip. It is also a liner lock with 420 HC liners. Now, you guys heard me say K110, and I'm sure that most of you already know that K110 is D2. It's just made by Bowler. Now, here's what this is the thing that I've been wondering. What is the difference in D2 and K110? Well, technically speaking, there is no actual chemical composition difference. The chemical composition of both of them is the same. It's just one is made in a different country, and another one is like more commonly known as a Chinese budget steel. So, with that being said, let's talk about a few things here. So D2 it's a tool steel. Now, it's a semi-stainless steel, being that it's got 12% of chromium in it. So it's semi-stainless. You know, it's almost stainless, but not quite stainless. So you can also look. D2 is also known as X15 3 CR MOV 12, which sounds kind of crazy, right? Like, but that's what it is. That's another name for it, which is, to me, I just learned that, so it's odd. Now, one of the things that I got to say about D2 steel is so D2 is a very good steel. What we have here is a lot of Chinese companies, they take D2 and they don't heat treat it right. D2 has to be heat treated properly. Let me explain something. So when heat treating D2 steel, you have to slowly heat the steel, and you also have to when you cool it down, you have to air cool it, and you have to do that very slowly as well, because it stresses it out. I mean, I really can't explain it enough that certain companies D2 is better than other companies D2, because the heat treatment is so important on D2. This Kubey, great D2. I don't know if it's the best D2. I wouldn't say that. So far, just from what I've learned, honestly, right here, look at this. This is the Kabar D2 Extreme. This right here, along with the Benchmade Adamas 375. They're fixed blades. So D2 is good for fixed blades. But what I want to talk about is how good that both of these D2s are. I mean, these two D2s are the best D2s that I've had yet so far of all my D2 knives that I've had and currently still have. So that's saying something. But like I was saying, it is so extremely sensitive to overheating. That's what makes the difference. You know, you got Bowler. Bowler is a very, very well-known, extremely high-quality company that produces some amazing steels. Now, let me give you guys a fun fact real quick. So Spyderco, they have never used CPM D2, D2, or any variant of D2, ever. I have looked it up. I can't find a single Spyderco knife ever made in D2 or CPM D2. It's odd. So D2 is actually used for things like tool dies, punches, blanks, thread rolling dies. You got what are some other things? Some shears, like for shear blades, you know, like shearing things. Scrap clippers, and of course tools. You know, I'm sitting here right now trying to think of some other applications that it's used for, and there's so many more. But I'm just naming a few of them that I can think of off the top of my head. Okay, so another thing about D2 is it's going to be in the D category of steels. Now, there's many different categories. Now, I know it's D2, but that doesn't mean that that's the category. It just happens to fall under the D category. Even it's named D2, but it falls under the D category. There's several different D category steels. There's like 5 of them, 7 of them that I know of. I don't remember the names of them right now, unfortunately. But yeah, you guys get it. So one thing I want to tell you guys about D2 is, check this out. This right here is the Civivi Odium. Almost forgot what it was. It has, now I did coat the blade with 3-in-1 oil, because as you guys can see, it's got some slight, just a little bit of surface rusting going on. Nothing serious, but this is a bead blasted finish on this knife. Now that's a problem, because D2 is it's not stainless. It's like a semi-stainless steel. And with this bead blast, it just doesn't stand a chance. Now, I'm not in a humid environment, and I keep this knife taken care of, and I keep it in a very dry place. But the fact still remains that it's bead blasting D2 is not a good thing. So I do not recommend a bead blasted D2 knife. I just don't. I'll never recommend that, because you see what's going on. And like I said, I take very good care of this knife. Very good care. So the elements of D2 steel are going to be 1.55% of carbon. You got 12% of chromium. You got 0.8% of molybdenum, however you say that damn word. You got 0.90%, 0.9, whatever you want to say, of vanadium, 0.25% of silicone, and 0.35% of manganese. Now, with all that being said, you guys can see, if you know anything about some steels, that it's definitely semi-stainless, and it's going to be a pretty tough steel. Now, you can Rockwell, I mean, you can HRC D2 steel all the way from 55 clean up to 62 HRC. Now, that's a pretty big gap there. I mean, that's like 14C 28N gap, in my opinion. But D2 does its best at 60 to 62 HRC. Now, like I was saying to you guys, it all comes down to heat treatment and how the knife was heat treated, or the blade. In this case, just the steel itself we're talking about. It's how it's heat treated. Now, add in edge geometry with it, and that's when things start to change a lot. Now, I know that D2 isn't the best with super thin knives. It's not the worst, not at all, but it's definitely not the best. Now, another thing with D2 is some people were questioning, is D2 good for a fixed blade? Is D2 good for something you're going to chop with, something that's going to take impacts? Hell yeah, it is. It definitely is. This right here, Kabar D2 Extreme, certainly proves that. I'll link in the description a hard use video of all 4 of these right here, knives right here. The Kabar D2 Extreme, the Petrified Fish 969, the Kubey Tityus, and the Benchmade Adamas 375. I will link the hard use demonstration videos of all 4 of them in the description, so you guys can see that it just kicks ass in every way. So another thing I want to say about this D2 steel is I started off, when I first got back into the knife game, like really hardcore, everything was in D2. Everything. And I mean everything. Every budget knife out there was in D2, and it was all Chinese made D2. And see, when you're doing D2, as I said earlier on, you have to heat it slow and you have to cool it slow. Very slow. It is imperative that it's done very slow. Now, you got to think, you got a lot of these knife companies that they're just trying to just push out as many knives as possible, as fast as possible. So, now I'm not saying that Kubey does that. I'm not saying Petrified Fish does that. I'm not saying Civivi. I'm not saying Kabar or Benchmade does that. But what I'm saying is, a lot of Chinese companies that are lower end companies, they're just pushing out these knives as fast as possible, and they need to get them out as quick as possible. And with that being said, you're obviously going to have to do certain things a little faster. So you may not heat the steel as slow as you need, and you may not cool the steel as slow as you need. I don't think I mentioned that D2 is an air-cooled steel. Did I say that? Well, anyway, it is definitely an air-cooled steel, and it needs to be cooled as slowly as possible. It's just the way it is with D2 steel. You know, certain steels, you know, obviously they're not all the same, and they all have their own chemical compositions that require different treatments. And that's the cool thing about steels is, you know, like one company's steel may not be as good as others, so always keep that in mind. not only does the company's heat treatment play a really big role in the knife itself, but the edge geometry. Let's see here. What is a thick behind the edge knife that I have? Well, I mean, that's not exactly thick behind the edge. That's definitely not exactly thick. None of these right here are thick behind the edge. They may have like decent blade stock, but they're not really thick behind the edge. The Petrified fish and the Tityus, they are very thin behind the edge. I mean, this is like thin, and it handles it good. So that's a very big plus. So we know that it can handle fixed blade. It can handle thin edge geometry. So D2, honestly, it just left a bad taste in my mouth when I first got into the knife game, simply because everything was in D2, and I didn't feel like D2 was that good. Come to find out that D2 is actually a very good steel when heat treated right and when at the proper HRC. It's a very good steel. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that the best D2 steel is the custom made knives. You will never find D2 in a production knife anywhere as good as a custom D2 knife, simply because they take the correct amount of time for everything. They do it slowly, they do it right. And D2 is that kind of steel where it just has to be done correctly in order for you to get the maximum potential out of it. I mean, that goes for all steels, but D2 right now, we're speaking specifically about that, and it is very imperative. So if you don't have that done right, then you're going to get an inferior knife steel. That's where some of these things come into play, like certain budget companies with D2 steel. People are like, man, that's some trash. D2 is a good steel. It's very good when done in a custom fabrications, simply because, like I said, that everything is done properly. It's done slowly, done properly, and it's not made in large batches, just thrown in an oven at once. You know, it's done by small, like 10, 15 knives at a time. And that's going to make a big difference in everything. It really does. It's attention to detail. It just makes a big difference. So hopefully I didn't bore you guys too much with this video. Hopefully you guys learned a little something. It's National Knife Day. I want to tell everybody who watches the videos that I appreciate you so much. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do it. You know what I mean? You know you want to. You know you want to learn a little something. So go ahead and check out what I got in the description. Check the channel out. Subscribe. Do all the likes, all the comments. Give me some support, guys. You know I'm going to keep bringing you guys what you want. I hope everybody's having a great day today. I hope everybody has fun and everybody stays safe. With that being said, if you're an addict, never quit. And stay strong and live long. Get the help you truly deserve so you can live your best life. And if you're struggling with bad thoughts, reach out and talk to somebody. It's all about sharp knives and good vibes here at What's the Point EDC. Much love and take it easy.